I'm going to rank all the games that I finished in 2022, then choose my game of the year at the end. So the first game I completed in 2022 was Ratchet and Clank. This is the new PS5 version. Ratchet and Clank hasn't changed much from the old games. You still get a bunch of different guns to kill enemies with, a lot of enemies that are coming at you. The puzzles are always good in Ratchet and Clank games, they're fun. So this is pretty much the same. Graphics have gotten, I think, a lot better. The story is a little bit cheesy, but it's cute. For Ratchet and Clank, I'm going to give this an A tier. The next game I completed was Cyber Shadow. I remember this game had very good controls. Like the control was very tight, and you kind of needed them to get through some of the levels. It was difficult at certain times, but every time you restarted, it wouldn't be very far from where you left off. The story was told in cool 8-bit style cutscenes, which I kind of liked. It was a nice throwback game. I'm gonna give this one a B tier. The next game I completed was Eastward. Now, I don't remember much about this game except that I really liked the graphics. The 2D graphics were really cool. The music was fun. I remember the game was going on a little bit too long for me though. I didn't really like the puzzles that much. They weren't hard. Kind of get a little bit frustrating after a while. If it was a little bit shorter, I think it would have been a little bit better with a little more gameplay elements, but I'm going to give this a C for now. So the next game I completed was Horizon Zero Dawn. I played the whole game when it first came out, but I did not play the Frozen Wilds expansion. So this time I went through the whole game again and included the Frozen Wilds expansion because I knew the new game was coming out real soon, Forbidden West. So I would say for Horizon Zero Dawn and the Frozen Wilds, the game was really good, even on the second playthrough. The story isn't as cool as it was the first time. The gameplay of shooting basically mechanical animals with to knock off their parts is always going to be fun. The only thing about the Frozen Wilds expansion I would say is that it obsoletes all your other weapons from before that, but that was a pretty good expansion also, and it did continue on the story kind of from the game, so I appreciated that. I'm gonna give this one A tier. Now, Horizon Forbidden West, I played right after Horizon Zero Dawn. I still didn't feel bored with it. It was a really good open world type of game. I liked how the story continued on from Zero Dawn, and Zero Dawn had little tidbits of what was going to happen in Forbidden West. Unfortunately, I don't think that's exactly what's going to happen in the third game, because at the end of Forbidden West, they just kind of, hello, there's a new enemy you're going to have to beat type of thing, with basically no backstory to it, at least as far as I know. But I like all the improvements that they did. The dialogue and the cutscenes are a lot better. I really like the setting of it. It's funny to see like how there was whole tribes of people came about from, you know, watching a hologram of some heroes, and that was what their whole tribe is based on. It's cool things like that I really enjoyed. And I really like the fact that there's a variety of weapons this time. Unlike Horizon Zero Dawn, where you kind of just stuck with one set of weapons. If you get a stronger one, you'll change to that one. Forbidden West, actually, you just kind of held on to your weapons because they all had different characteristics. Basically, Forbidden West was an S tier game for me. I really liked their open world there. Touhou Luna Nights, that was the next game I played. It's a Metroidvania based on, I guess, a long-running shooter genre, a shmup. I don't know anything about the story, but the Metroidvania part was pretty cool. It was a very difficult game for some of the boss battles, but it's short and easy to go through. I'm gonna give this one a B tier also. Now, the biggest game of the year probably for a lot of people was Elden Ring, and this is probably the biggest game for me too. The reason for that is because I kind of like Dark Souls games, so Elden Ring was obviously something that I was looking forward to. Now, if you don't like the Dark Souls genre, you probably won't like Elden Ring, even though people say it's a lot easier and you get a lot more choice in what you do. But what I really like about Elden Ring was the fact that there was so much in there, and like the creators, the developers didn't even care that you don't find a lot of things. Like, I got an ending, there's multiple endings in here, but there is whole story paths that I just completely missed because I didn't explore in that area, or I didn't follow a certain storyline, or, you know, and that makes it fun for me to play a second time if I ever go back to it. It's a really long game, so I probably won't go back to it right away. Maybe if there's new DLC or something, I'll do that. I really appreciate that it's on you to discover what's in the game, and everyone can basically have a different type of experience with this. I played this game at the same time as one of my friends, and he went through a completely different route than me. We still talk about like certain bosses that were really annoying to beat. You feel accomplished if you beat them. This game's definitely going to be an A tier, or S tier for me, I mean. Alright, Guardians of the Galaxy was the next game I played. I heard good reviews for this one. It's a very story-based game. I like the dialogue between all the characters. The gameplay was okay. I didn't think it was that amazing or anything like that, but the story kept me going, and I really liked how the characters interacted while you were walking around. Basically, it's like playing a movie of Guardians of the Galaxy. But this one's gonna be a B tier for me. Now, Days Gone seems to have a lot of controversy with the game. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't like it. As an open world zombie game, I think they could have done a better job. The hordes were the only difficult things to handle. The rest of the game was kind of simple. The main character wasn't very likable for me. I mean, he was okay. I guess they're trying to make him seem like a conflicted type of guy, but he never ended up becoming someone that you would like, or someone that I would like anyways. But I did finish the game, and I don't remember too much about it except that it was frustrating during the horde battles, and the story wasn't very memorable, but it was an okay game. That's all I can remember. I'm gonna give this one a C. Now, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. This is mostly a visual novel with some cool strategic gameplay, like strategy gameplay, where you're trying to guard certain towers with mech suits and stuff, which you don't really see because they're just dots on like a radar screen. But the game is really cool. I would have to say it's a very different game than most people would be used to. The main hook, of course, is going to be the story for a game like this, because since it is a visual novel. I like how all the voice lines are acted in English and Japanese if you want to play, and they're acted pretty well. The coolest thing about it to me is that it's a sci-fi story, but somehow it integrates like every single sci-fi movie story that you might have seen. But if you've seen a lot of sci-fi movies, and just think, if you were to combine all of those, what kind of story could you come up with? This game is that. I really enjoyed this game. I'm going to give this one an S tier also. Now, Deedlit in the Wonder Labyrinth. This one is another Metroidvania 2D based on, I think it's a manga or an anime series that's been running for a while, or at least it was, the Record of Lodoss War. I would say this game, I don't remember much about it except that it was kind of difficult. It was short. It was a nice palate cleanser after playing 13 Sentinels. I don't have much to say about this one, but I'm going to put it at B tier because I do remember having some fun with it. Now, Resident Evil 2, the remake version. I played this before, but I wanted to play it again. I don't know why, it was just during the summertime and I had nothing to play. So Resident Evil 2 Remake, obviously very good. I think I played the Claire storyline this time. I think they did a really good job with this one. I like Resident Evil games, especially old school ones, and it doesn't take much time to go through and play it again. Unlocking stuff is always kind of fun for the next playthrough, and that's kind of what keeps you going. So Resident Evil 2, it's definitely an A tier game. Now Resident Evil 3 I played right afterwards, just because I felt like playing more Resident Evil. I unlocked some more stuff with Resident Evil 3, so I played through that. It's a quick game. While people didn't like it because of story changes or how quick or how short it was, this game is still good. It's a lot more action oriented, a slightly different style of game from Resident Evil 2, which I think people really liked. This one is still an A tier for me too. Now Fire Emblem Three Houses, I played this over again because Fire Emblem Warriors, the Three Hopes was coming out soon. I knew that it was going to be within that universe and with all the same characters, so I played Fire Emblem Three Houses again. The first route that I played back when it first came out was the Golden Deer route. I just played the Blue Lion route, I think, with Dimitri. This game is probably my favorite strategy game on the Switch. I like the story. I like how there's the story from three different characters' perspectives. I like how all the houses have different characters and all the characters have their own personality style. It takes a long time to beat though. It's gonna be a while until I play it again because I do want to finally get to that third story. I did play through the DLC with this one. I didn't have the DLC when I first played it. So the DLC part was kind of cool, adding another house that you can interact with during your playthrough. Fire Emblem Three Houses, it's gonna be S tier for me. So Fire Emblem Warriors, the Three Hopes is kind of a spin-off of the Three Houses. They changed the story a little bit and you're playing a different character. In Three Hopes, the school arc didn't really happen. They went to war before the school arc happened, so things have changed. I usually don't like the Musou genre, but this game actually made it more interesting. There's a lot more tactics, sending people where you want them to. the paper, rock, scissors strategy in Fire Emblem Three Houses, which they use in Fire Emblem Warriors Three Hopes. So that plays into how you move your characters around and stuff. So that made a little more fun gameplay. There's different routes you can take during the battles. So actually I did get maybe the bad ending, I guess you can call it, because I didn't do something in one of the routes, but that's okay. Really, the experience was that you get to see more of the characters that you liked from Fire Emblem Three Houses. And I played through the Golden Deer route again, where you see more of Claude, more of his backstory basically. I'm looking forward to play the other houses on this one too. It wasn't as good because I'm not into Musou games like I said, but I'm going to give this an A tier. South Park: The Stick of Truth. Now this game is memorable for me because it's the first game that I completed on the Steam Deck all the way through. A great RPG. I like how South Park it is. Some of the parts can get pretty gross. Yeah, it's more gross than anything. I thought it went on a little bit too long for what it was too, but I'm gonna give this one a B tier. Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I'm a big fan of the Xenoblade series. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was probably the best one, I would say. It's really close between 1 and 3. I really liked 1, and 3 was very similar. The characters are all great in this game. I thought the actual gameplay of turning into the Ouroboros thing was cool at first, but then it did get kind of a little bit repetitive, I would say. But in general, I really love the story. I wouldn't mind playing this over again even though I know the story because there's some things I missed in there. I'm gonna give this one an S tier. Now after Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which was such a long game, I decided to play a short game. So I played Inside, which is an older 2D stealth type of game, I guess you can call it, but it's a very interesting world. There's no real dialogue or anything. You just go through this world as what looks like a kid, a child, and you're trying to avoid all the dangers that are coming at you. A dystopian society kind of thing where they're doing some weird experiments and stuff. I like the animation of the kid that you're controlling. While I didn't quite get the ending of it, it's probably more like a philosophical thing anyways. This game was really good. I'm gonna give this one an A tier for what it is. Now Mark of the Ninja, another indie game I think that came out a long time ago. This is definitely a stealth game. It's kind of more like a puzzle game though. I really like the variety of how you can take on each of the levels. This one's going to get a B. So next game I completed was Bayonetta, the first one. I was going to play through all the Bayonetta games because Bayonetta 3 was coming out. I did play the first one a long time ago, but I didn't quite remember how the game was or the story. So I played it again. I'm not super into these action type of games because I'm not the type to try to get the highest combos or get the S and A tiers for each of the battles and things like that. Basically I played through them for the story, which Bayonetta has a pretty interesting story, and I like the vibe basically of the game. So, but I'm gonna give this a C tier just because it's not my style. The next game I finished was Broforce, which is a 2D platforming shooting game where you get to play as a random movie hero character, basically like Rambo. You'll play the Terminator, but there's a ton of characters in there. You'll randomly be spawned with one of those characters and you have to get through each level, and it was just fun. I'm gonna give this one a B tier. Now Chimera Squad, I started this game and I stopped playing it and put it down a bunch of times. I finally went through the whole game in 2022. I kind of understand why I put it down so many times. I know it wasn't XCOM 2. They are set characters that you have. You don't create any characters. And the fact that the game is a lot easier because they get pretty overpowered as you play them. I think that kind of turned me off a little bit. The story wasn't that great either. But Chimera Squad was not a bad game. It just wasn't an XCOM 2. I'm going to give this one a C tier. Now, since I finished Bayonetta 1, I'm also going to play Bayonetta 2. I would say Bayonetta 2 did improve on Bayonetta, but the gameplay is so much the same. So for me, that's still a level C. And actually, after playing Bayonetta 2, I decided I won't be playing Bayonetta 3 this year. I'll just wait till the price goes down or something. I might play it one day, or when I feel like an itch to play these action games, I'll play that. Now, the next game I finished was Tunic. Tunic was a surprise. Obviously, it's supposed to be like a Zelda clone because the little fox here is wearing a Link from Legend of Zelda type of outfit. It is like that, but it's more difficult because the whole game is kind of a puzzle because you have to figure out what you're going to do based on getting these instruction manual pieces. But most of the stuff is in a language you can't read. So even from that, you have to kind of take from the pictures and try to figure out what your next move is. The only thing I didn't like about Tunic was that last boss fight. Oh, I died so many times on that one. The game is difficult, but the last boss just seemed almost like cheating. But that's a lot of indie games. I feel like they're like that. But Tunic was good up until that point. I'm going to give this one a B. Now, Resident Evil Village. So this is interesting because I played Resident Evil Village on the Stadia service, which, as everyone probably knows, is going to be expiring soon, if it hasn't already. I would compare Resident Evil Village similar to Resident Evil 2, the remake. Basically finding things and keys to go to another spot. It was very similar to Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. It's much more of an action type of game than horror. I'm going to give Resident Evil Village an A. So after I finished that, the Plague Tale Requiem came out. Now, Plague Tale Requiem had a really good balance of combat and puzzles. The only thing I did not like about Plague Tale Requiem was that in a lot of the open areas where they kind of let you do whatever you want to get to a certain point, they don't tell you where that point is that you're trying to get to. So I had to circle around a lot to try to find out where I was supposed to go next. There's no icon or anything that really tells you. But besides nitpicks like that, the game was really good. Plague Tale Requiem is going to be an A tier. Now, God of War Ragnarok came out after that, and I definitely had to play that game. Now, it was a little bit incomprehensible for how this fate thing worked in this game. I wasn't quite sure about that, but the gameplay was good. The interactions between the characters were really good. I wish there was a fast travel system that was a little bit easier, because at the end of the game, I wanted to go after, I think it was Na or whoever the Valkyrie Queen is, but I got stuck in some area and I didn't feel like going out and wandering back to the teleport points. And I didn't know how to get out of there. I got stuck in some mines area. So some way to get out of there would have been nice, some way to fast travel. But other than that, this is going to be an A tier, or S tier, I mean. So after God of War, I played Harvestella. I like these farming genre type of games. I also like JRPGs, so Harvestella was supposed to be something in between, I guess. I think Harvestella tried to do too many things, and it didn't do any of them really well. Like the farming aspect and stuff, it was basically a replacement for your currency, because you don't get any money and stuff from beating enemies. And to buy things, you had to farm. But I think the systems didn't integrate with each other very well. The combat actually was pretty boring too. It wasn't worth to be up close and fighting with enemies, because you'd constantly have to eat and heal. There was not a very good dodge system. So basically I chose a ranged character, ranged class, and then had my companions do all the up close attacks and stuff. And that kind of limited the appeal of the game. I think the story was pretty interesting, but the characters were not that great. Harvestella is a mediocre game, I would say. I'm gonna give this a C. The next game I finished was Judgement. This is a spin-off of the Yakuza series. I love the Yakuza series. Like a Dragon was my favorite one out of all of them, but all the Yakuza series are fun. Judgement is also a little bit different because you're playing a detective. There's a lot of detective-y type of things. The stories are always good, and Judgement also had a really good story. So I'm gonna give this one a B tier. Now, Ghost of Tsushima, I didn't play the Iki Island expansion, but when I went back to play the Iki's Island, I thought it was a little bit weird because they gave you the whole island to explore, but it was paced in a weird way where most of the quests didn't happen around the whole island. It only happened in a small part of the island. I got overpowered in Ghost of Tsushima also. Like, the enemies weren't very hard to kill. It got a little bit boring after that. I'm gonna give this one a B tier. So the next game I completed was Code Vein, which is like an anime style Dark Souls. Once again, if you don't like Dark Souls, you're not gonna like Code Vein. But Code Vein also is not a very good game for a Dark Souls copy. The story was not very good, so that wasn't a reason to pull me through. The exploration was kind of boring also. You already have a map and you have to go through every nook and cranny, especially if you want to get the good ending at the end. And I'd have to say that Code Vein was something that I kind of wanted to play, but it didn't live up to my expectations. The Code Vein, I'm gonna give a D. It's my only D, but that's because most of the games that I actually finish are pretty good. So the last game I finished the year off with was Signalis. Signalis is supposed to be a game that's very similar to the older Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, except that this one's kind of in future or in space maybe. And that is a pretty good description. The game was very much like that. There's some backtracking, you get keys, you have to solve puzzles, and then you get to go on to the next area. The combat was very similar. You don't have a lot of inventory space. The game is very similar to the old style Resident Evils. Now some of the puzzles were kind of difficult to figure out, so I did a lot of running around until I figured it out. I guess there's multiple endings here, and I didn't really get the good ending, but at the same time it doesn't really make me want to go back and play it again. So I'm gonna give Signalis a C tier. Alright, and that is all the games that I played in 2022. I don't think there's any games I'm gonna change. Like Ghost of Tsushima, I only put them at B tier because I was only talking about the Iki expansion, which I didn't think was that great. But for the whole game, I would say it would be an A tier. Yeah, that's the only thing I think I would actually change. As for my game of the year, man, all these games are really good. I know it's cliche, but I'm gonna go with Elden Ring as game of the year for me. It's one of those games that I still think about of going back to play again. I know there's gonna be enough new things in there for me to experience. You can play as a different build. The story is not implicitly told to you, so you'll discover more about the story the more you play. Like, I want to play it now, I just don't think I can find the time to play it again. And that was how I felt through the whole year.
Friend.